Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. I have returned. Welcome to the Hard Rock Lunchbox. And if you're watching the top 20 on Stranger TV on YouTube, welcome to the top 20. Don't let my more palish than normal expression fool you. I have become under the weather increasingly over the past hours this morning. I'm not quite sure what to expect or what is happening. I feel like I am just dying right in front of you, and I know to some of my audience this is a good thing. On the other hand, I did not get raptured again, unfortunately, so I guess I am not worthy, or the rapture didn't happen. Apparently you can make up your own facts if you want, so just think what you will. That's cool. It is an incredibly rainy and humid September 25th, 2025. That's right, 92525. That's kind of cool. I should probably stop hitting the clapping button. I had a whole lot of stuff I felt like talking about going into this week, but man, the world has happened. Am I right? I think I've just got to get over myself and the fact that I keep trying to not do politics on the show. I will say I was watching Dr. Mike on YouTube this morning, because I just wanted to see if get some confirmation basically of what I was thinking about the whole Tylenol gate nonsense that's going on from our ridiculously retarded president and his even more retarded Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Dumbass Kennedy, about this whole Tylenol thing. I mean, first of all, the difference between me and a lot of other people, specifically MAGA people, and I'm going to draw a distinction because I have a lot to say about MAGA versus Republicans versus some other stuff people are saying. But the difference is, I have told people for well over a decade, probably coming up on a decade and a half, where when something gets said, like, things really need to pass the sniff test, right? Like, and I say that, like, you should feel something in your, something in your gut, like, okay. Now, that, I should kind of recategorize that, because that's a good thing to do if you have a clue about the way the world works. And if you don't, like, that's a problem. Like, I talk about people that like to step to me about facts and figures and understanding the world around me, who I know well enough and long enough to know that they couldn't get above a C or higher in high school, right? Like, so those people, like, yeah, there's always people that don't do well in structured education, and, a lot of people don't take tests, but on average, how you did over the course of your academic career in school, barring outside influence, is a good indicator of how intelligent you are, how smart you are, how able to figure out the world you are, right? Like, there's a gradient, right? Like, obviously, everybody, like, famously knows there are some people that just don't take tests. Well, there's alternatives to taking those tests. I mean, there really are. There's ways to kind of prove your academic worth. But my point is, these people sometimes will step to me about their understanding of the world, and it's like, you gotta know that I'm going to be smarter than you on not only this subject, but most other subjects, because I'm smarter than you in every other subject that we've gone through. And it's offensive to a degree when somebody, obviously dumber than you, tells you that they're smarter than you, right? I don't know if you guys remember, had this experience in school, like when you were little, like elementary school, where kids that were shorter than you said they were taller than you. Like, it's arguably and demonstrably not true. Well, that's going on with intellect and intelligence, right there, because there are definitely people on the right, there are definitely MAGA people on the right that are very intelligent, right? They are. What they're doing, in my opinion, at that point, is just reprehensible in some of their rhetoric and some of their actions. Like, if you're really smart enough to understand what it is that Trump and his cronies are doing, and you're fine with it, then there's probably another reason for it. But what I find, more often than not, 99 times out of 100 for sure, is that the people believing all this nonsense are idiots. Like, they're just idiots. And it leads me to my point where so many of these people they hear something from Trump's mouth or, anything in the administration, and they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Which is exactly what I've been saying over the years about kind of like how, like your gut reaction and this sniff test. And I realized the back, caveat to all this is like, this is bad if you're a complete moron, because what's happening is you have somebody pandering to you. So they're going to say what you want to say. Like the stuff Trump has said as president, he has never said, like this is stuff that, like, and I know this because Trump actually used to be a regular guest on the Howard Stern show, and I've listened to the Howard Stern show since I was in college. Say what you want about Stern, like as an entertainer and an interviewer, he's probably one of the best that has ever lived. Certainly one of the greatest to ever do the job, given his longevity, as he's about to hit 50 years in broadcasting. I mean, that's, like him or not, like he can do the job. He's also very smart about how he does things. But I've listened to Stern for decades and heard Trump on there many times. And, Trump is not anti-abortion. Like, he never was. In fact, he was actually kind of pro-abortion, like, wanted you to get one, especially, if you were somebody he had knocked up. He's absolutely very sexist. He said it himself. And the way he's described what he liked to do at beauty pageants that he bought just sort of says it. Like, he's a sexual predator, and, like, you can figure out like what level you want to think he is, but like these are all things that, he's said out of his mouth for years. And Stern himself has said he doesn't understand, like when Trump was running for president the first time, and certainly this last time, like even Stern himself would say, like, I don't understand it, like, because Trump hates these kinds of people. He really does. And as he said, even just recently on his show, like, go to Mar-a-Lago and see who he surrounds himself with on purpose. Does it look like your fat ass from, like, Idaho? No, of course not. You aren't his people. You've never been his people. And I'm not saying that, like, Democrats have any excuse on that too. Like, I think they're just as elitist. Any person with power and money, I think, is elitist. But I just don't feel like the Democrats ever pitched themselves as the voice of the common man. No, nor was the common man stupid enough to think that they were. Are there some? For sure. Are there some Republicans that speak, to the common man? Absolutely. I mean, there are fewer and further between these days, but like, I've voted Republican when it made sense to do so. I've voted Republican for governor of my state. Absolutely. I would vote for that governor again today, right? Like, I just would. I thought he was a good governor. I thought he did a great job. And if the Republicans could put up somebody like that was fiscally responsible and socially just like left everything alone, then I think we'd be fine. But they don't. They put up Lee Zeldin, who's a big MAGA election denying idiot. So that's what they got, and that's why they got wiped out by it. So, you put up an idiot, don't expect him to win, I guess, unless he's running for president. So dealing with a lot of that kind of stuff is it's dangerous because in the wake of this Tylenol nonsense, there was about, 40% of the country, I guess, that went like, oh, I knew it. No, you didn't. No, you really didn't. And the best part is, the reason I was looking at Dr. Mike and a couple other, like I was watching ASAP Science and stuff like that, because they were covering specifically the research that Bobby Kennedy and his dumbass team were citing, including, I forget his name, but he was on Good Morning America, I guess, or CBS Morning, one of those shows, and he was directly quoting the chair of Harvard that was responsible for this study, and he directly misquoted him, which is something the Maha movement does all the time. Remember, Maha had put out a report a few weeks ago, or months ago at this point, and they cited a bunch of studies, 7 of which didn't even exist. They just made them up. So it is not uncommon for them to just flat out lie. But then all these other people, these morons, right, are hearing this, be like, oh, the guy from Harvard said it. Like, no, he didn't. That wasn't what he said. Everything's taken out of context. The main thing he said is, like, this requires some further research. And it's just the difference between me and somebody that's a moron that's just wanting to believe everything that they hear is, like, even if I hear something I wanted to hear, especially if it's too good to be true, like, when you're talking about research, like, these research papers exist. Anything that gets published ends up online eventually. It's super easy. And I understand that research papers are kind of difficult to read, especially medical ones, right? Like my degree is in psychology, like clinical psychology. So I actually had, for my final paper, I had to write an official psychological paper based on the manual, like how you write stuff. So I understand what an abstract is. I understand how you include your materials and your subjects. I understand how you draw conclusions. And I also understand how to read what is required for future study, because anybody that does research, the main thing you're trying to do is either confirm something that's already happened or find something in your study that promotes the next round of research. Those are the main reasons. Yep, there are others. Those are the two main reasons. Confirmation's a big one. Verification and validation, those are big. Like manipulating variables in there to see if things hold true, to see if this study that works on mice also works on rabbits, to see if it also works on humans. Like, that's a big deal. But also, if you see any failings or flaws or places to go in your research, you include that in your conclusions. So yeah, I do not hold it against people that they do not know how to read medical reports, but medical journals are pretty good about that kind of thing, and they usually break it down. They usually break it down like factually, and they'll cite their sources, and those sources tend to be actually accurate. Now, you can have bad studies, like we've all seen that, and you can cite a bad study, right? That's why you need peer-reviewed research. So anyway, that whole thing. So 40% of Trump supporters, by the way, like the fact that Trump is now nationally unpopular at around 56 and 57% across the board on polls is a good sign. And that's something we should discuss here on the show. Probably not today because I'm just really running out of steam. But the Tylenol thing specifically, I want to get to that because both things that I was looking at that were citing the actual research. It's a Swedish study, I believe, and the reason they used the Swedish study is because Sweden, I don't know why they do this. I don't know if it was because of the study or they just happen to do it because it's socialized medicine. I have no idea. But they had over 2 million children that they were able to study across this idea of many parts of their medical history. And some of it included whether or not parents had taken Tylenol during pregnancy, right? So there's two main things I want to talk about this. Just, I don't know how much of my listening audience is pregnant, planning to be pregnant, and take Tylenol, but the two things I really want to get into here is they did find a correlation. Now, we've talked about correlations before and how they prove absolutely nothing. These are things that kind of just happened at the same time, right? Just, I don't feel like getting into it, but correlations are things that happen at the same time. When R.J. Reynolds got sued for cigarettes causing cancer, R.J. Reynolds went into court and said, well, maybe people that get cancer are much more likely to just smoke, and maybe that's what causes it. And you can do that in a causal relationship because you cannot prove causality in a correlative relationship. Sorry, if I said causal relationship, I meant correlative. Two things correlate, you can't prove causality. That's a different relationship, and that's a different proof. So that's basically what that is. So what they found was like, yeah, sometimes when mothers took Tylenol during pregnancy, sometimes there was some autism. But what they did is they actually expanded upon the study, and they found two other things. There was some, I'm just drawing a blank. There was some environmental aspect of this, and I don't remember what that was, but it wasn't the most important part. The two most important parts was autism in the mother has a genetic component. You are more likely to have autism on the female line, according to this study. It's not according to me. You are more likely to have autism if your maternal line has autism. There's a genetic component. I don't know if they went into what it is or why it is, but there's that. So once they factored that out, they removed that, the Tylenol effect also went down. But the most important thing that they found was if you are making babies with old-ass product, and I don't mean to female shame here, but women over 40 that aren't in great health have a higher risk of having children with autism. Fathers delivering their subpar sperm that are 40 and older also there's a smaller but more likely component that you will have children with autism. That's what this study says. And what they were saying on ASAP Science is that as soon as you take those things into consideration, genetics, age of the parents, and these couple of environmental factors, it wipes out the Tylenol thing. It wipes out the Tylenol effect whatsoever. And that's what the study actually said. But because Trump and Kennedy and their unbelievably stupid interpretation of the world around them saw Tylenol, and Bobby Kennedy promised that by September he was going to have the cause of autism for us, and this is what he came up with. Bobby Kennedy, in true Bobby Kennedy fashion, did not do the job that he promised he was going to do, and the test was due. The paper was due today or this week, and that's what he said. He blamed it on Tylenol. Why the makers of Tylenol didn't take him to court immediately, I have no idea. Maybe there's something brewing. Maybe there's something coming. Maybe they like the advertising. I mean, the Tylenol scares, which probably most of my audience is too young to remember, was a big deal. But, like, everybody knows the name Tylenol, and bad publicity. Is it bad publicity? I don't even really know. But one other thing I wanted to... So that's your Tylenol thing, right? Like, it's, and if you're interested in this, Dr. Mike does a really great job on YouTube. I watch his stuff all the time. I don't agree with him on everything, and that's fine because he's just talking about scientific research when he was doubling down on the fact that he really tries to not be political, but he's also saying that medicine really shouldn't be partisan. And he does actually, he makes a really good point that they didn't even discuss. Like, one of the reasons you take Tylenol is because you can have a fever. And sometimes if your fever is getting a little high as a pregnant mother, that's dangerous to the baby. So he says, rightly and smartly, you sometimes have to weigh the benefits for, the concerns and stuff, the risks and the benefits. But that's true of all medicine. But can you imagine a mom that basically is now going to cook her baby and, like, definitely give them brain damage because she had 104 fever and would not take Tylenol? I'm like, if you don't think that's going to happen, like, you aren't paying attention. These are the same people that died trying to inject bleach and, ivermectin only for COVID and whatever the other one was. Like, there are people that really die from these stupid statements. As any cult leader will tell you, you can get people to do anything. So to think that, like, Trump's followers aren't going to hear that and be like, you better not take Tylenol, especially some MAGA dude telling his pregnant wife, like, you can't do that. The risk to the baby is serious if you have a serious enough fever. And I would argue, without any scientific research, that is probably going to be a more common issue than anything Tylenol related, especially since this study just showed it's not actually Tylenol related. Was Tylenol involved? Sure. Was air involved? Yes, also. Right? Was water... Did they drink water during pregnancy? Probably. You know what I mean? Like, this is how stupid some of this stuff is, but it's also how dangerous. Now, the fact that it's probably going to only affect the MAGA part of the country, like, that's okay with me. Like, if people want to be stupid and kind of need to learn their own lessons, like, I can appreciate people needing to learn lessons for themselves. I would have thought a lot of them learned it during COVID, but I guess not. So here we are with that. I do want to say one thing specifically about the latest episode of Bacon is My Podcast, where I didn't read all of it, but I think that Mike and Jimmy had decided that they did not want to do clips of the episode they were doing because they wanted everything to be taken in context. Now, as somebody that gets taken out of context all the time, especially through clips that my AI generator just picks and sends out, I totally get it. That totally makes sense. And they were doing, like, I got through maybe an hour of it, maybe a little less than an hour of it, but they were talking specifically about kind of like censorship and anger and sides and stuff like that. And Jimmy, like, to his credit, was echoing a lot of the same stuff that I say all the time, where it's really about people are just choosing teams so they can fly their flag, and they just want our side to be right, and they want your side to be wrong. And that's just that really doesn't, and I say it all the time, it just doesn't belong anywhere outside of a sports arena, right? Like, it really doesn't. Like, I say all the time, like, I love that I have friends that like the Rangers and the Islanders because I can just start an argument between them at any moment. And I don't care because neither team is going to make the Stanley Cup, as we all know. So it doesn't really matter. It certainly doesn't really affect anybody's life, right? Nobody I know is actually on the Islanders or the Rangers. So, it's just, that's where that kind of belongs. But, like, when you're dealing about stuff like our society and our economic world and, wars in the world, like, wanting your football team to be right really shouldn't play into whether or not we sort of start dealing with this Ukraine situation, right? Like, it really, really shouldn't matter. And you can actually, I guess you can pick a side, Ukraine or Russia, but like, you shouldn't just pick a side because somebody else picked the side. Like, think what you want. Like, I have friends that truly believe that Russia was absolutely right in invading Ukraine. And I just cannot begin to understand that. A, because they're a sovereign nation and another nation just invaded a sovereign nation. And like, that's bad, right? Like, I think we collectively as a society have agreed. And like, a lot of people are like, well, Ukraine deserved it. I'm like, unless Ukraine attacked Russia, I don't think they deserved it. Like, but they think what they think, right? And they should be in this small minority because they have a small worldview and stuff like that. But anyway, so one of the things that Jimmy was saying that I thought was actually very astute, and I also happen to disagree with it, is he was saying, like, to try this thought experiment for a week when you're talking about the left or you're talking about the right. Try and put a name with that. Try and take somebody from your world that is the left for you or is the right or represents those. And when you're saying, like, I'm so sick of the left, then you can say, like, oh, I'm so sick of Billy. Like, and just sort of see how that sounds, feel how that sounds. And do that. It's an important thought experiment that I think is worth doing. I've tried to do that for years, and just sort of personalize some things so I just don't come off like a dick. Now, I get called out for being a dick all the time. I also get called out for generalizing all the time. I try and be very careful especially now, I try and be very careful to designate between MAGA and Republicans and conservatives, right? Because I feel like there's a difference between them. When I speak about Republicans in Congress, I'll speak about bills that are on the floor, how they're voting, blah, 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 blah. The fact that after Jimmy Kimmel's, removal for a couple days, the fact that I was able to just agree with what Ted Cruz said kind of just goes to show where I'm at. Like, yeah, he's MAGA, and I think Ted Cruz is despicable on a bunch of issues, but he was absolutely right about what he said about censorship and freedom of speech, right? Like, so when I'm talking about, like, Republicans, I'm talking about Republicans. Like, everybody that's a Republican. When I'm talking about MAGA, I am talking about people that are still supporting Donald Trump's agenda for this country. I think that's what they're called. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. I probably won't listen. But, like, yeah, I'm directed it towards them, not all Republicans. And I do find some Republicans that I know get mad about that. I'm like, I don't consider you MAGA. I consider you Republican and wrong on this issue, but I don't consider you, blindly following Trump because he says something, right? I feel like that's a very specific slice of the populace. So I try and make those distinctions. I have also been very careful to sort of over the year, not say all. I've tried to say some. I've tried to be specific. I've also considered calling people out by name whenever I do post about these things so people know exactly who I'm talking to. But the reality is a lot of times when I'm going to say something, it's because there's just been a plethora of information coming at me, mostly misinformation, just like when they were saying right after Charlie Kirk got assassinated and everyone was like, we should round up the left. Like, people thought I was making that shit up. So I actually had a post, like, these are the posts that I'm seeing from these people. This is not stuff I'm making up. This is what is being said. And people were saying to me, but the left is saying the same stuff. I was like, show me a post. And of course, nobody could. Like, the fact that they just always seem to post that one maybe trans girl with the big, thick bottle glasses having, like, a real bad day, like, as the representative of the left is just hysterical, right? Like, it's just, that'd be like me putting up a picture of a Klan member and being like, well, here's your average Republican. Like, I'm smart enough to know that's not true. I'm also smart enough to know that the Republicans used to be a pretty fair gradient because we used to have moderate Republicans. In fact, I still think we have moderate Republicans. I just think they're afraid of the MAGA movement. But I'm hoping that with the new, like, not even new, but growing underwater approval rating of Donald Trump, that some of these people are really going to start splintering off. The fact that Rand Paul keeps disagreeing with Trump, I think is great. I am not a fan of Rand Paul, like his politics and his ideology, because we have a difference of ideology. But I love the fact that he is not willing at all to just bow and take it from the president because he says so. I mean, I think that's just brilliant. I really do. And I forget what I was going to say about where I disagree with Jimmy, but I think it's Oh, I do remember, because the point of that thought experiment, at least my takeaway on it, was basically to humanize people and, like, you know, have an actual conversation. And this is where I disagree with him. And I don't think I disagree with him out of principle. I think I disagree with him out of time and experience. I think Jimmy would be fine with me telling you that, like, my experience fighting this fight is much bigger, has gone on much longer, and has been way more public than his. So I feel like I've been doing this a little bit longer, and I feel like I started with nothing but respect. But what has happened is that if people aren't having those discussions with you on equal footing, on equal respect, on mutual respect, and all that other stuff, at some point you need to stop doing that. Because these people will fight dirty, they will say nasty things, they will threaten nasty things, they lie, they do all these things. And what I've found over the past really year is that as you try and hold that moral high ground to just do things the way we should do them, and nobody else around you is doing that, you're going to get drowned out, and you are going to get beaten in this fight, because there just is no way to win against, you know, a bunch of rabid hyenas that are attacking you just over and over and over again. It doesn't matter what high ground you're on. So I think the humanization of something is important for you as a thought experiment. But at this point, there is so much in the MAGA movement that is so dangerous, so misinformed, and so awful to the rest of the world, including the side you're on, that I don't necessarily know that they deserve that respect if they are choosing to be part of that movement. At some point, you've got to look around you and say, what am I actually doing in this world? What damage am I doing? Like, who am I hurting? Like, the fact that people were cheering that they were holding migrants in cages in Alligator Alcatraz, and their answer was like, well, they shouldn't have been here. It's like, no, you shouldn't put humans in cages, right? Like, I understand even prisons have a code, right? But we've convicted them of whatever, and they live in a cell and stuff like that. But these were like really, really notoriously bad cages. The one in New York City is accused constantly of overcrowding and really poor humane conditions. Plus, we kept shipping some of these people off to, like, these black hole sites in El Salvador and now Sudan. Like, we don't treat human beings like that. At some point, if you're on that side of this, if you're on that deep into MAGA, and you still decide to associate yourself with them, you need to realize what your team is doing. And I feel like that says almost everything I need to know about you if you're still okay with that. I'm not. I do not treat humans that way. I feel like humans deserve better, even if they've done something wrong. Yeah. Are there despicable people that really should be put lights out? Absolutely. I've always been a believer in that. I feel like there are some people that cannot be redeemed, certainly not rehabilitated in the way that our system works, and maybe it's just time to just, like, you know, plug them into a toaster and see what happens. I'm fine with that. But it's not a group. It's a person. It's an individual, and I think those things need to be done on an individual basis. I'm not going to say somebody's brown and speaks Spanish and kick them out of the country without at least checking into it. And that's kind of what the MAGA universe is doing, which is exactly what happened after Charlie Kirk's assassination, when everyone was like, we should round up the left because they're violent. I'm not. I'm not violent. Keep it up, though, and you never know what you're going to get out of me. So, I've talked enough. I am so lightheaded now, it's crazy. But we're going to play some music, as we always do. We'll start with a little local stuff, or local and unsigned stuff. These guys from Connecticut, have not played with them in a minute. Would love to see them again soon. It's Fear the Masses, Tipping Point.
You my poser when I want freedom. You my poser when I want justice. You my poser when I want equality. Want me to go somewhere and fight for you?